BTW, Challenges and Triumphs in Training. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Chris Caramonica. Today, my guest is Josh Hayes. He's a Regional Maintenance Director at Widener Apartment Homes. He's also an NAA-EI faculty member. Josh and I have a great conversation about how he went from a groundkeeper to Regional Maintenance Director. He's also really gotten involved over the last year and a half in being a CAMT trainer. We talk about his experiences growing up in this industry and now giving back through his training. So join me and Josh as we go beyond the work. Welcome to Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. My name is Chris Caramonica. As a 15-plus year veteran in the apartment industry, I have stories to tell, a desire to hear and tell other stories. As a multiple committee member for NAA, a CAMT advisory board member and a CAMT holder, and a national presenter and educator, I have met and worked with so many great people in our industry at all different levels. This is not going to be a how-to podcast. This is going to be a how-did podcast. We are going to explore the how-did tales in multifamily maintenance. How did we do it? How did we learn from it? How did we grow? How did we decide not to do it again? Join me as we go beyond the work. Josh, thank you so much for joining me today on Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance.
Pleasure to be here.
So I have been following you on LinkedIn for a while. We have some mutual contacts in common. And one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about today, which we're going to get to in a minute, is your CAMT training. You're doing a lot of CAMT training and you're spotlighting your CAMT class members that are getting the certifications. But to get to being a trainer, you have to start somewhere. So tell me in the audience a little bit about how did you start in this business and get to where you are today?
It sounds like I've always got into the business just like everybody else. Just I wasn't looking for it. But we had a family friend of ours that he was a maintenance technician at a property in Colorado Springs. I had just left. I was 20 years old. I had just left working for Sonic and was just floating around seeing what I wanted to do. I was working with my stepdad doing interior trim work, hanging cabinets in new houses. And it just wasn't consistent. There were no benefits or anything like that. And so one day we're over at his house for a barbecue and he says, "Hey, look for a groundskeeper here." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You want it?" I was like, "Sure, put me in. What do I got to do?" And so set up the interview. And I remember walking into the interview, and to this day, it was a newer property, had a big clubhouse. We're sitting at this executive table that probably seats 15 or 20 people. I'm on one side and my service manager and property manager's on the other side, just going through the interview and whatnot. And like, "Why do you want to be a groundskeeper?" I said, "Since I've been a kid, I've been mowing our yards. I've been working on my aunt and uncle's farm. I grew up in farm country in upstate New York, and I did it for free. So why not get paid to do it?" And the service manager chuckles and he goes, "You won't be doing any of that." And just laid out what I would be doing. I was like, he goes, "You want to do it?" I was like, "Absolutely." And went for the background check, drug screening and everything, and got started in June of 2004. And I got hooked relatively quick. It was nice to have freedom, like just being as a groundskeeper, having little expectation, but high expectation. It was a Class A property. It was new. It had to look a certain way, and that's what I had to do. So it was just nice to be able to walk around with my headphones on, enjoy the weather. I like being outside. The weather in Colorado Springs was beautiful and stuff, so it was never really a bad day.
Much better than the weather in upstate New York. And whereabouts I'm a New Yorker myself. So when you say upstate, what do you mean?
I lived right off of I-90.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
I lived 40 miles down the road from Beach Not Baby Food. So
that's upstate. I will allow that. As a downstater, I'm from a New York City suburb. We call where I grew up upstate because we were an hour outside of New York City. Then I went to school in the Finger Lakes region. That was upstate, but you're definitely upstate.
When I asked you, "Oh, some White Plains?" I'm like, "No, not really White Plains. A little bit farther north than them."
Yeah. So you fell in love, right? You fell in love with it.
Yeah, it was nice. And it was just, yes, I had to maintain the grounds every day, but then I was just learning something new every day after that. I got into maintaining the pools and just doing little things here and there that I can turn around and say, oh, this looks so much better than what it did when I started. Organizing the pool, get the pool open, ready to go for the residents to enjoy. Pull on the breezeways and parking lots and the sidewalks like that, just making it look better. It was rewarding when I got done with the task and stuff like that. And then really got even more rewarding when residents are making comments, not only to me, but to the office staff, to the maintenance guys saying, properties looked a lot better than what it has before. Not that it wasn't good, but now that we have somebody to maintain it all the time, it looks great. No cobwebs around the lights and then the breezeway, stuff like that. Just really fell in love with it. And my service manager was awesome. I still talk to him to this day. Every time I go back to the Springs, I still make it a point to stop in and say hi to him. He was just a big influence on how I decided to lead my team as I moved throughout the industry and stuff.
So you did that, you worked your way up, and what are you doing now? And how long have you been doing it?
So now I'm regional maintenance director for Widener, and I currently oversee our Oklahoma and Arkansas portfolio. So that's 26 properties and about 9,400 units.
Wow.
I've been in my current role since May of 2021. So
That's
4 units here in a couple months.
So you're a little bit of a road warrior. I love talking to maintenance guys that start out on property and all of a sudden they're getting on planes for the first time or doing 4 or 5 hour car rides when it used to just be riding around on a gator or a lawnmower property. Much different commute.
Folsom, I try to get Folsom every week, and so that's a day trip over there. And then Arkansas once a month, so usually it's getting ready over there for help them out.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you is your resume is amazing. I did check it out on LinkedIn, and for my audience, please check out Josh Hayes on LinkedIn, connect with him because he's got some really cool things, but it's just a list of so many things that you've done and so many things you accomplished. Just probably not enough room in your over 20 years in the business for us to cover on this podcast today. But one of the things that stood out to me was would you call it recent becoming a trainer?
Yeah.
Fairly recent?
Within the last 18 to 24 months.
Really?
I mean, even as a service manager, I was still training my on-site guys, onesies, twosies here and there. But then really, once I got involved in our local association, really ramped up and took off and stuff. And then they were actually the ones came to me and was like, hey, I really love what you're doing. You have a great reputation within the organization, with associations like that. Would you be interested in going to AFT training so you can teach KMT? And I jumped. I was like, absolutely. I was definitely nervous going to that class because I'm not a people person. I'm not the boisterous one in the crowd. Would ever meet people? Usually I just stick to my people that I know and just have conversations with them. But so it was nice to push me out of my comfort zone. That's how the interaction that I had down there, the advanced facilitator training.
Yeah. So I, much like you, that's how I got thrown into the deep end in affiliate work and at the association work that I've been doing for the last few years, is that somebody at my organization was like, hey, we'd love for you to go to AFT, Advanced Facilitator Training. And for those of you that don't know, it's offered several times a year through the National Apartment Association. And it is a amazing 3-day intensive course led by 3 amazing instructors. Shout outs to Rich George, Marshy French, and Doug Chaskin, who are the current facilitators. And I was lucky enough with mine, Sue Weston, who used to teach AFT, was a senior faculty member within AA. And they've really become friends and mentors to me as well. But it's an amazing course. So where did the leap come from doing the course to tell me about the first time that you actually stood up in front of the room and opened the KMT manual, which my manual is sitting right here, by the way. I'll talk about that. So my KMT manual is actually right here for those of you that could see on video. What was it like opening up for that first time and going over the first course? Tell me a little bit about that.
I actually posted something with LinkedIn. I just work in that social media phase with MySpace, Facebook, like that. So I use my LinkedIn for professional, my Facebook for personal. And I actually quoted the Eminem song sitting there in the lobby, like my hands are sweaty, just like that. Nervous. And for my first one, it was really special actually, because I went back to Colorado Springs for the first time to train there. So that was my first class actually, was going back to where I started my roots and train those guys. And so there was a lot of pressure on me, which was probably just me, because the people there had changed so much in the last 12 years that I've been gone. And so nobody really knew me except from Widener's like that. And then I walk in the room and I see the guys that are in there. And it was a small class. It was 11 of them. 9 of them were service managers, 15, 20 years experience. And I'm just like, nerves are just eating away at me. And I open the book and I just start talking and I get in a rhythm, and probably within 20 minutes, it just washed away. There's something about it. I'm not a big conversation person, but like when I met with Adrian in person, the conversation was so easy to take off because I thoroughly enjoy doing this business. And so when I talk about it, when I get educated about it, I think it puts me at ease. And it just, after I got through that introduction and mailed back, because that was what we worked on at AFT, made sure I got that done, it just washed away. And then every day after that, it was just so much easier. And it even got easier when I told them, I said, my goal is for you guys, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or just have that look of, okay, I understand, because that helped me out when Paul taught my class. And so once I started seeing the light bulb click with them, even though they have 10, 15, 20 years of experience, I realized I'm still giving them something that they can take out of this class.
Yeah, you mentioned Paul Rhodes was my KMT trainer as well. We were talking about it just before, and he's somebody that is a very good friend of mine. He's also a host of he's going to kill me because I'm spacing on the name of his podcast. So Paul, I'll expect the text message as soon as you listen to this. Paul's the host of the Maintenance Mindset and Maintenance Mindset Minute here on it. But he was a longtime facilitator for KMT for the National Apartment Association. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of KMT recipients that received it from him. And he's one of the people who got me into doing that AFT and getting involved with the National Apartment Association.
Yeah, I can only imagine what his reach has been on this industry. I've only known him since I took the class back in 2019, but I follow him on LinkedIn as well too. Yeah, he's just a wealth of knowledge. Definitely somebody I try to follow as far as his knowledge and whatnot, what he brings to the table. So.
Yeah, I took it from him in 19 too. So Josh, we probably got our KMT just around the same time. Yeah. Training isn't for everybody, right? It's one thing when we do it on site, like you were talking about. I've always trained people, right? In my role, I've always shown somebody that I work with how to do something cheaper or faster or better. That's one skill set that I think a lot of maintenance team members have because it's how they were trained, right? A lot of people in the trades learned from somebody else. They didn't open a book. They didn't go to a traditional schooling where you would just sit in class for 8 hours. What makes it unique for you to be able to go from that shoulder to shoulder training to a lecture format? Because any traditional trainers are stand in front of the room, much like a high school professor or a high school teacher or a college professor, and they're reading material or giving examples of material. What was that like for you? And how is it different than when you were doing that shoulder to shoulder for years?
It was definitely challenging, especially with the KMT, just simply because of the time constraint with it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just a lot of prep work prior to getting to that class. Going over the slides, making sure I had my notes and trying to, because I was also adding slides to the program. So I was trying to make sure everything was falling in line with my book that went on the slideshow. So for me, it was a lot of prep work getting into it before, 2-3 weeks before to the day it happens. And even the night before, I was training appliances. I'm still going through my slides. I'm still thinking of what are little things here and there that I can throw in and stuff. So I think that's the hardest change is just, and then also teaching so many people. instead of being one-on-one with somebody, one-on-one training is significantly easier. But yeah, going through that lecture training was a little bit harder just because you're trying to maintain the pace that you need to maintain to get through everything. And you're trying to make sure that you're giving them the right information that they're going to be studying for, especially when it comes to the CAM team, because they got past the test afterward. So,
it's not an easy test. It's not an easy test.
No.
Yeah, I experience the same things when I have to get up in front of the room. It can be a little challenging because people don't realize whether you're a trainer or you're a presenter at an affiliate or a much larger stage, there is a lot of prep work that goes into it. And I'm sure that you spent hours putting together your own kit of tools and the own materials. You and I were trained by the same person. We saw what arguably, God, he's going to get mad at me, but arguably the gold standard of CAMT training. What are some of the lessons learned that you took from other trainers that you've had? Not just Paul. I don't want it to be a Paul love fest, but what are some of the things that you've seen in your years that you took away that you instilled in your training?
It's confident in yourself. That was something that I always struggle with, is just making sure that I'm confident in myself and the material that I'm covering and what I'm discussing. When training on with shoulder to shoulder somebody, be diligent about what you're showing them and stuff like that, making sure you're one, being safe, following how you want things done by the company standards too, because you don't want to go in there showing people one-on-one stuff and you're doing all these shortcuts and not being safe, and they don't repeat that because a lot of them have to Josh and whatnot. With the book training though, or lecture training, I think it was just really watching some of the other team members at the AFT training and seeing how they did things, and just taking some little bits and pieces of what they did and how they interacted with everybody that they're working with, kind of use that to my advantage.
Yeah, I still pick up things every time I'm in the room with another trainer. I absorb it like a sponge. Any chance I have to see somebody doing a presentation or a lecture or a training, pick up a little nugget, right? Just put it in my tool bag, because we're maintenance guys, right? We just have a different type of tool bag that we're used to carrying around. You got any good training stories? And again, you can leave out names, you can leave out companies, but any good or bad stories that you either delivered or heard from the field?
Not so much while I was training. Right? I've only done a handful of CAMT classes and association classes. I would say some of the most impactful things that I took away was when I was being trained with Paul. There's, I think, 2 or 3 different stories that he relates to us as to why we do certain things, that I use those same instances when I'm training. That's great. For me, that I remember those 5 years later, to me, it was a big impact on me. So I feel that would be a big impact on somebody else as well. Safety items and different things like that is what I took away from Paul and reiterating to everybody else. I'm still passing that Paul legacy down to, even though they may not know who he is, but they might hear his name based upon this story that he told me that was pretty impactful.
But I find a lot of times when I'm either delivering something like CAMT training, I get a memory of a story that I personally had. The maintenance technician that was installing a bathroom vanity and didn't mark out where the studs were before he did it, and ended up drilling directly into a copper pipe, right? Because he didn't take the extra step to know what he was drilling into or confirm what was there or what wasn't there. So those are the kind of things that kind of flood back to me. Do you have any, I don't want to call them horror stories, or snafus, situations that just went awry from your maintenance days when you were physically on site doing so?
One of the ones that I did share was, we were covering the electrical section in CAMT, and it was the importance of not trusting somebody, verifying the breaker's off by using your actual meter. And one of the stories that I told was, I actually had a technician. He was new in the industry, probably 18 months. And he was actually working with one of my most senior guys. He actually had more experience than what I had. And they were working on a hot water tank early in the morning. And so he goes and they're getting ready to disconnect the hot water tank. And the technician goes, the older gentleman said, "Yep, power's turned off to it. We're good to go." And my technician goes and grabs the wire, and it wasn't good to go. And we joked with him because he just started wearing his wedding ring because he never wore his wedding ring before. And so we just joked with him, like, apparently you're not supposed to be getting married to this girl. You shouldn't be married to this girl because you finally start wearing the wedding ring. And then he shocked his hand and kind of messed up his finger a little bit. So,
oh my God.
So that was just one of the little stories I told about trust and verify, which are either just because you trust the technician, don't trust them when it comes to electrical working.
Wow. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've seen and heard one too many horror stories that involve electricity that are very much like that. You mentioned a little earlier your first class that you got in front of, and it was a lot of more experienced service managers, I think is what you said. You said there was a good number of the original class that you had. How do you find, what were they getting out of it?
I think they were getting out of it just maybe some of the experiences that I've had. They might not have gotten a lot on the textbook, but I think the way I communicated things to them, I think that's maybe what they got. Well, I also share other things, like I talk about life goals. So one of the things that I did every day before I started CAMT class was we just have like certain questions. So one of them was, what's your dream goal? And then what's your dream destination? What do you want? What's your goal in 10, 15 years from now? And then really what I ended up doing was on that last day, I wrapped it all up and I said, I was having these goals, and these dreams and these aspirations and stuff. What are we doing this with? We got to have a purpose in our lives. We have to focus on ourselves to make sure we're doing the best for us to get things out of it. And I just talked about every day when I talked about something, I was basically kind of talking about what I was able to achieve. Because I think people hear about maintenance technicians and they don't really see some of the glory thing, some of the things that you get out of it. So like for me, I was able to buy my dream truck. In 2015, I was able to buy the truck that I've been looking at for the last 15 years. I was able to go buy it because of this industry. I was able to go overseas to Italy and spend 10 days with my wife. I never once thought growing up in New York, I would be flying across the ocean to go to a foreign country, but that's what I was able to achieve based upon my work ethic, what I want to do and stuff like that. And I think I got a lot of life lessons really listening to me. They got those aha moments, some AC moments, some electrical, three-way switches, some appliance ones, but I really think for the most of them, I think it was just made us reflect a little bit more on life and how to manage the team and stuff.
I love that. I love that you're going past the textbook and bringing in your personal life experiences and what this industry and what your growth has done for you personally. I think that's not talked about enough, especially in this day and age, the new generation. You and I, Josh, are now the old guys. We used to be the young guys when we got in. Now we're maybe not old. We're the more experienced guys in this business. But I think that having those conversations in a training is probably more impactful than anything that's in the manual, right?
Yeah, I know. Even when I did my QT training here in Oklahoma City, I had seven wide associates in there. I have a presence, 6'2", 260. I'm a big guy. It's not that big beard, so I intimidate people and stuff. And one of my service managers was in that class, and I checked in with his area service manager 3 days after the class, and he goes, "Johnny really enjoyed the class, not just for the information that you provided, but," he goes, "he felt he got to know you a lot more on a personal level." And I felt to me, that was a really good thing for him to say. And then even I talked to Johnny shortly later that day, and he said the same thing. He goes, "I just really changed the way I looked at you was differently. You're human. I see you as this regional maintenance director. that comes in. If you see him on site, it could be something bad because he's walking units, whatever it is. But he goes, sitting in that class for a week, he goes, I just got to know you so much more on a personal level. And he goes, I respected you before, but now I just have a newfound respect on kind of what you've done, where you come from. He goes, I didn't really know your entire 20 years. He goes, so now knowing you started from the bottom and came to where you're at, he goes, I just have a newfound respect for us. That kind of thing so good. I walked out, I was like, that's the nice thing about teaching.
So let's follow that road for a minute, because Josh, I've had similar experiences, right? I've been the maintenance supervisor on site that is nervous when the regional director comes or the VP comes or the owner comes. Now the script is a little flipped. I know that there are people, like you were saying in your example, that get a little nervous when I get on site, when I do a surprise visit. And I don't do surprise visits. It just happened to be I was driving by. I really am like, hey, I'm in the area. I'm gonna stop by. I want to say hi. I want to ask you how your vacation was, or ask you how the wife and kids were, or I have one maintenance supervisor I worked with for a number of years. He is in jujitsu. So every time I go to talk to him, it's, hey, do you got a tournament coming up? Like, how'd you do in the last one? Tell me all about it. But I think that's something that's missing, is that personal connection, especially when we get to our roles. When you had that experience with that service manager, did that change your approach? And this is the route that I want to go to now. Maybe we got away a little bit from the training and more into your role. Did that change how you approach your site visits and being out in the field?
Little bit, yeah. Maybe it was just a recent conversation because we had just been training. So it was just a very recent thing with 2 months. I think now when he sees me on site, he's definitely, he's more welcoming. Before it would be reserved, he was quiet, wouldn't say much, or maybe if I'm walking with his service manager, he would walk a different way, where now it's not like that and stuff. It seems like, at least on his side of it, it's gotten a lot easier if he sees my truck pulling. Because usually everyone's, oh, I see your truck, I heard your truck, it's the opposite way. Now it's not like that so much, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's important that whether you're doing a weekly site visit, a monthly site visit, in some cases, there's some sites that I only may able to get to them once a year or twice a year, to make those personal connections, especially in face-to-face. We experienced some very difficult times during COVID, and we're still feel the effects of it, right? Like, a lot of our meetings are being held remotely, and it's so great to see. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is, what's it been like for you to be back out in the field and delivering trainings? Yeah, and talking to people person to person, because it's not something that we can all do, unfortunately, in our roles.
I definitely love it. I try to have service leader meetings every other month. So in that way, if anything, we can just all get together. We can stay face to face. I hated COVID times with sitting behind a computer and trying to watch a training video or trying to do anything on the computer. Because I'm like, the guys, they don't want to watch a screen and try and follow somebody along and stuff like that. So definitely try to get out as much as I can and just try to get face to faces with the guys, with just meetings with them. Just trying to get everyone together, socialize, try and have a little bit of lunch, camaraderie, talk personal stuff, so that way they can get to know each other. But then it helps me out because I do have those properties that I don't see that often. And I tell them, I said, it's a good thing if you don't see me, because obviously everything's running smooth. But one of the things, my goal for 2025 is to not fall on that trap. I've been on the receiving end of that when I was on site, where when I did see my regional director's car pull, I was like, oh, what's going on? Something, because at that point it was like, she was terminating an employee. We had to change something bad had happened. And so it got to the point to where, oh, Johnson's car is on site. What's going on? And we walk into the clubhouse, and he made a comment. She was, I need to start coming here just more often. And I'm trying to do that with my team as well. And I think having the service leader meeting is a big thing that helps out as well, too.
Yeah,
at least that's just 4 face-to-faces every year, no matter what. How great your property's doing, you're going to see me at least 4 times a year during the service meeting. So.
Yeah, that's great. I do a bi-weekly meeting on Teams because I oversee properties in 4 different states. So I have 90 approximately 90 properties in 4 states, but I just finished planning a trip out to Pittsburgh. I'm going to Pittsburgh on Monday. I'm spending 4 days there. 3 of them I'm cramming in, I think, 12 site visits. And I booked up my day from 8 in the morning until 6 p.m. And just, I want to get to sites that I haven't been to in a while. I want to talk to people in person that I haven't seen in a while. And I want to see what they need, because I can ask somebody on a call, what do you need? And they don't answer. I'm sure you sit on plenty of calls, Josh, where it's just crickets on the other end, right?
Yeah.
But the minute you show up, it's a list of things. Oh, Chris, let me show you this. Oh, Josh, let me show you that. It's, why didn't you tell me about this before? I was just waiting for you to come.
Yeah.
But I was never going to come.
Yep.
Do you have, you're nodding along. Have you had similar experiences of you've checked in with them every single week for the last month, but then you show up at the site and all the things that happened in the month are unloaded on you the minute you show up?
I was out on the course and I was like, posted. I got hit plate. I was going to go do a sidewalk with him and stuff. And all of a sudden it was, here's this and this. I was, oh, okay. Wasn't planning for all of this issues to have to work through or discuss, but just, if you have this issue before, just call me, shoot me a text.
Yeah.
And probably solve some of this over the phone or help you guys out over the phone. But yeah, it's definitely, hey, by the way, I got this and this. I'm like, just talked to you last week. And you have this issue, but you're telling me it's been going on for a month and a half now, or 3 weeks, whatever it is and stuff. I think it just leads back to us as guys. We don't want to ask for help. We don't want to bring things up. So,
yeah, I've experienced the same thing, and I get frustrated every single time it happens. But what I do is I look at myself in the mirror and I say, maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. Maybe on those calls, I'm not like, I shouldn't be asking, or when I talk to them one-on-one, hey, do you need anything? Maybe it needs to be open-ended. What's going on at the property? Asking an open-ended question is a lot better than, oh, do you need anything? Because that's a yes or no question, right? That's very close. Nope, I don't need anything. Because much to your point, Josh, maintenance guys don't need anything until they do. So tell me about, what's your day-to-day like as the regional service director at Widener?
Usually every morning. So get in, usually every morning, just follow up emails, seeing what happened the night before, what I missed the day before. We're trying out dispatch maintenance here in Oklahoma City. So really diving into those numbers, seeing how the previous day was. Right now, it's all capital stuff. So I just got my capital projects for this year. So that's what I've been really focused on the last few days, was starting to plan that out. And then this month really has been focused on financials. We didn't do so hot last year. So I've had some tools that I've used in the past. So I've been spending a lot of computer time building out spreadsheets for each of my guys for budget trackers so they can monitor their budgets a lot easier and more efficiently. So really right now, that once I get through February, it's usually by 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm down at my office, and then just go visit. Go have meeting check-ins, property walks, meet with vendors. That's been a lot of stuff right now, is meet with vendors. Corporate association functions. I'm on 2 different committees there. So that takes a little bit of commitment and time for that as well, too.
So has your engagement with training or the association, has that had any trickle down to service managers or team members that you're working with?
As far as what?
Are they getting involved? Is anybody that you're working with showing an interest?
I have one. There's one particular employee that I've been working with him. He was one of my service techs. I spent 3 years grooming him to take my position, because my philosophy has always been, I can't move up if I don't have somebody to replace me. And so he was somebody that showed interest in wanting to move up. So I had spent 3 years while I was at Brookwood, kind of grooming him, guiding and coaching him and stuff like that on how to manage teams and manage properties. So I would say he would probably be one of the only ones right now that has been interested in the training aspect.
Yeah, it's good to hear, because just like we learned from others, we have to do our part to make sure that the next generation is passing it along, right? And I think that's really important. Anything else you want to go over, or Anything you want to share about your experiences in the industry or challenges that you've had that maybe our listeners have experienced as well, and you may have a lesson?
I think one of my biggest challenges came when I was taking over Brookwood Village. It's 1,120 units, Class C property built in the 70s, full, things like that. And that really tested me, both just mentally, questioning my ability to lead the team, seeing where things are at. But I really feel it helped me grow as well, too, because one of the things that I preach during all my training is build a routine and be consistent with your routine. And as I started to build my routine for Brookwood, I realized that I've always been like that, but I wasn't consistent with it. Like when I was a groundskeeper, when I was a service tech, I had my daily task every day. When I was a service tech, I'd be in a pool. I had followed steps every single day. So every day, checking the pool, clean the skimmer baskets out, check all the chemicals, exercise the valve on the chlorinator. And then every Friday, same thing, fill the chlorinator, I backwash the pool no matter what. Never had a pool crash on me because I was diligent on those steps every day. And so that's one of the things that I learned I had to do. And that's what made me successful at Brookwood was there was such a lot of stuff going around with just make rates, move out, evictions, crazy things. And so I realized I just need to find time, 2-3 hours, whatever it is, first part of the morning, I need to do this in order to be successful. And I think that was really the catalyst for me that really got me work format quickly. Because within 2 years of being with Whitehair, I was identified as being the next regional maintenance director. Just we had to get to so many properties in order for me to be there. Whereas other companies, it took me 4 or 5 years to really see it. And I would go through the training and then something would happen. I would get the position or whatever. Really, I think the biggest thing is building a routine, being consistent, building with your routine and making sure you have time to do it every day. Especially on a site level, to be consistent and to be successful, for the property to be successful.
Yeah, I think that is a great lesson, Josh. I hope that people are listening, that consistency is important, that our lives are very chaotic, both at work and outside of work, but our work lives could completely derail 5 minutes into the day. But to have some kind of structure and consistency helps bring you back to center on those difficult and those chaotic times. So,
yeah,
do you have any?
With that chaotic stuff, I've had service managers that handle it crazy. And like, I had an issue. I was training my replacement, and we had a ceiling drop down. We had a vertical, the ceiling fell, insulation everywhere, and then she's over there. And she called 12 people. So she calls 12 people over there to start cleaning up, and it's just chaotic. And I'm just sitting there, just walking around. I'd experienced it before. And so I was just, all right, let's do this, let's do that. And at the end of it, she goes, why are you so calm with this? I go, why am I going to get upset at this? I didn't do this. This is beyond my control. So why am I going to let this dictate my mood about it? I go, plus I'm the leader of the team. If everybody sees me running around, panicking, stressing out over this, what are they going to do? Like,
Yeah.
If it's bad enough, I should stress them out, but it's going to be bad. But if I'm calm, collected, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, the ceiling fell down. We have insulation everywhere. Yes, the residents mad, but at the end of the day, I didn't do this. It's not my fault. It's just life in the apartment industry. So that's another thing I try to teach all my service managers is don't take stuff personally. And there's only so much you can do that's beyond your control. It's out of your control when it happens. Just roll with it. So
yeah, I often get asked why I'm so calm and why I'm always smiling, because I think it's just the way to be.
Yeah. There's absolutely no reason to get worked up about it. We got what's yelling. What's done.
Because every situation I think is the worst situation I've ever been in. I just wait a week. And
that's
something else comes along that was worse than the week before. So Josh, as we're winding down our time for this episode, do you have any upcoming trainings that you want to plug, any things that you have scheduled, or anything that you want to share with the audience as we wrap up?
We just have, if you're locally in Oklahoma City, you're watching this, the association is doing a toolbox class on February 26th. It's a Make Ready 101 class. So I'll be teaching a morning class and an afternoon class, one on the north side, one on the south side. So it's a fun class to go to. just discuss the importance of doing everything ready and walk everybody through how to definitely do everything great. But right now, that's all I got on my plate. I'm going to got KMT coming up end of the year, or KMT's in October. So I got KMT coming up in October. I do have some other regions that have reached out to me, but nothing set in stone as far as just travel for that. But I'm just trying to stay local for right now.
Awesome. I'm going to encourage all of my listeners to be following you on LinkedIn. I'm sure you're going to be posting all of your training engagements, KMT courses, and stuff like that. But Josh Hayes, Regional Maintenance Director at Widener, it's really been a pleasure getting to know you and getting to talk some of these stories with you today and hear some of your tales. I really appreciate you joining us today. All right. Thank you all, and see you for the next episode of Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance, powered by the Multifamily Media Network. Feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on my page at multifamilymedianetwork.com, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me for this episode. No matter how long you've been in our industry, or what position you have at your company or your community, everyone has a maintenance story to tell. Go to www.multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave me a voice message or share your information, and we can tell your tale together on a future episode. Please check out our sponsors and like, subscribe, and follow to this podcast or video, and join the Multifamily Media News Network newsletter for upcoming shows and blogs from me and the other great hosts on our network. Our stories all connect us. See you for the next chapter.